Hootie leaves the cave, still carrying the dragon's words in his chest. The world feels different now, quieter but louder at the same time. He walks home thinking about the sun, the heart, consciousness, how everything is connected. But reality interrupts. Sirens, lights, people gathered. His house. His mother is gone. Car accident. Instant. No warning. Everything the dragon said about
What
life,
happened over there?
energy, cycles, now it hits different. Not philosophy anymore. Now it's pain.
Energy don't die, right? So where's she at?
That night, he doesn't cry at first. He just sits there, staring, trying to understand. Then it hits, hard. Hootie runs, back to the cave, out of breath, desperate.
I, dragon! I need you! I, dragon! I need you!
Silence. He runs deeper inside. Nothing. No glow, no presence, no voice. Just cold stone.
You said you'd be here.
Echoes, but no answer.
Nah. You said you'd be here.
Silence answers him, and for the first time, the knowledge doesn't comfort him. It hurts. He sits there and begins to cry. Not loud, not dramatic, just real. Tears hitting the cave floor, echoing.
I ain't even get to say bye.
He curls up against the cave wall, still crying, until eventually he falls asleep. The Merkaba dragon appears, not physical, luminous.
I go to prepare a place for you.
The space around them bends, like reality folding.
And I will come again and receive you into myself.
The dragon's form begins to expand, becoming light, geometry, frequency.
That where I am, there you may be also.
Hootie wakes up suddenly. The cave is cold again, still empty, but something's different now. He wipes his face, breathing heavy. He looks down and notices something glowing near him. A small sphere, radiating energy, alive. He reaches out slowly, touches it. Flash! Energy surges through his body. His heart beats stronger. Understanding. Not full, but enough.
This what you left me.
He stands up, dusts himself off. No more crying. Still holding the chakra ball, he looks around one last time.
So this is really it.
No echo, no answer. He clenches the chakra ball tighter, then nods to himself.
All right.
He turns and walks out of the cave. Sunlight hits him. He pauses at the entrance, doesn't look back this time.
You said you'd be where I can find you. Guess that's not now.
He puts it in his pocket. His aunt is waiting. Engine running. Come on, we gotta go! Hootie walks up slowly, still processing. He opens the door, hesitates for a split second, then gets in.
It's going to be okay, Hootie. I'm going to take you to America with me now, okay?
Hootie looks out the window, the world passing by.
I'm ready.
Now he's on the plane, looking out the window. Clouds, sunlight. The same sun the dragon taught him about. He closes his eyes for a second, feels it. Plane touches down. Hootie became older now, not a boy anymore, but a young man. That morning, Hootie takes a quiet walk in a park nearby. Hootie sits under the tree, head down, holding the chakra ball tight, thinking about all the teaching he had learned from the Merkaba dragon.
You said energy don't die. So where'd she go?
Why do you weep beneath me?
Who said that?
You sit at my roots and pour sorrow into the earth, yet you do not hear it answer you.
A tree don't talk. That's not possible.
Yet you respond. Do I frighten you?
You don't frighten me. I've talked to a dragon before.
Lies. The dragons have long been slain.
That's not true. The Merkaba dragon, he taught me. He was my friend, my only friend. If the dragons are gone, then who killed them?
You are finally asking the right question. Sit.
Hootie hesitates, then slowly sits.
If you wish to understand dragons, you must first understand the men who feared them.
The park is still. No wind, no people, just Hootie and the tree.
You said the dragons got slayed. Who did it?
You rush toward answers without understanding the pattern. You ask who slew the dragons, but you do not yet understand what a dragon is. The dragon is not just a beast of fire and scale. It is knowledge. It is power. It is memory of a world before control. When you hear stories of men slaying dragons, you are not hearing victory. You are hearing conquest. The Greeks learned this. They came into Kemet not as conquerors at first, but as students. They sat among those who understood the sun, the stars, the body, and the mind. They learned everything they could, and while the people of Kemet gave knowledge freely, others watched with different intentions. You must understand something. No empire falls from the outside first. It falls from within. The Persians did not attack blindly. They moved with certainty because they knew something. They knew the Greeks would not intervene. And why would they not intervene? Because the fall had already been agreed upon.
So they set them up.
Yes, the Persians were the storm, but the Greeks were the harvest. They allowed Kemet to weaken, to fracture, to bleed. And when the time was right, they stepped in. Not as destroyers, but as saviors. The same pattern you still see today. Create the problem, then arrive as the solution. And when they took control, they did not just take land. They took knowledge. They reshaped it. They renamed it. They repackaged it. And what was once truth became mythology.
So Greek mythology ain't just stories?
Nothing you have been taught is just a story. Greek mythology, biblical religion, ancient texts. They are fragments, distorted reflections of older truths. The gods, the titans, the serpents. These are not fantasies. They are symbols of power structures, of beings, and of knowledge systems that existed before your current world. When the Greeks encountered this knowledge, they could not present it as it was. They were too spiritually immature. They couldn't grasp the concept of true spirituality. So they rewrote it. They turned truth into myth, and myth into belief, and belief into control.
So the dragons was part of that too?
The dragons were not meant to be remembered as they were. They were turned into monsters, so that no one would seek what they guarded. They were turned into enemies, so that their destruction could be justified. And when the stories were passed down, the victors wrote themselves as heroes. But you spoke to one. That means your path is not like the others. You were not here to repeat the story. You were here to remember it.
Silence returns. The wind finally moves again. Hootie looks up at the tree, different now.
So they took the knowledge, then changed it?
They did not simply change it, they repackaged it. They studied Kemet. They learnt its sciences, its spirituality, its understanding of the cosmos. And when they took control, they did what conquerors always do. They made themselves the center of it. You have seen it yourself, Serapis, Zeus Ammon. Greeks, dressed as Egyptians, but only after conquest. Before that, they came as students. After that, they came as gods.
They tried to make the Egyptians worship them?
Yes, and the people of Kemet rejected them. So the Greeks changed strategy. If you cannot force belief, you rewrite it. They hid truth inside story, story inside religion, and religion inside control.
So that's where the Bible come in?
You are getting closer, but understand this clearly. What you call the Bible did not appear from nothing. It has a lineage, and that lineage passes through Greece. You have been told that the Torah, that the Old Testament, came first. But history does not support this. Greek mythology predates your biblical manuscripts. Long before the Septuagint, long before your written Hebrew texts, these stories already existed.
So you saying the Bible came after that?
I am saying that what you call scripture was built from earlier foundations. Stories, symbols, concepts, all drawn from older systems and reorganized. And who organized them? The same ones who took Kemet. You must understand something deeper. When Ptolemy II commissioned the translation, it was not simply about language. It was about control of narrative. Take the law, translate it, reframe it, and now you control how it is understood.
So the Septuagint, that's where it started?
That is where it was standardized, organized, presented as authority. But by then, the transformation was already complete.
So all of it, Greek, Egypt, Bible, it's all connected?
Everything you have been shown is connected, but not in the way you were taught. What you call mythology, what you call religion, what you call history, are fragments of the same story, a story of knowledge taken, reshaped, and given back in a form easier to control.
So what's real then?
That is what you are here to remember. And that is why the dragon chose you. You have one piece, but there are more. And that is Hellenization.
What is Hellenization? I heard that somewhere before.
Hellenization was not just culture. It was control. Not swords first, but ideas first. They understood something your world still struggles to grasp. You don't conquer a people by killing their bodies. You conquer them by rewriting their memory.
So the Greeks didn't just take Kemet. They took what Kemet knew.
They absorbed it, distorted it, then repackaged it. You keep looking for war in the physical, but the real war was intellectual. Look at the pattern, boy. They came into Kemet as students. They learned the sciences, the cosmology, the divine language of nature, the connection between the sun, the body, and consciousness. Then, when the moment came, they allowed Kemet to fall, not because they were weak, but because they had already taken what they needed. The Persians attack. The Greeks do nothing. Then suddenly the Greeks arrive as saviours. But they do not restore Kemet. They replace it. That is not coincidence. That is strategy.
So everything after that was planned.
Everything after that was rewritten. You see the Greek fingerprints everywhere, yet people still ask where religion came from. Why? Because they were taught to look through the illusion, not at it. Think, every major structure of belief, every doctrine, every system of worship emerges during or after Greek influence, not before. Never before. They could not make the Egyptians worship them as gods directly. So they created new gods, Serapis, a fusion, a fabrication, a bridge between truth and deception, close enough to feel real, but altered enough to control.
And that's where false religion comes into play.
That is where institutional belief begins, because once you control belief, you control perception. And once you control perception, you control reality. You asked about the Bible, why it feels familiar, why it echoes older stories, why it mirrors Greek mythology. Because it was built from it, not invented from nothing, but assembled, constructed, engineered.
So the Torah didn't come first.
There is no physical proof of it existing before the Greeks. None. Only claims. Only tradition. But Greek writings, Plato, Herodotus, Hesiod, Homer, their works exist. And they predate what people call biblical history. That alone should make you question everything. They did not just conquer land. They conquered time. They placed themselves at the beginning of stories they did not create. They took Kemet's knowledge, hid it inside mythology, then hid mythology inside religion. And now people argue over belief, not realizing they are arguing inside a system that was designed to be believed.
Silence, while the wind blew under the tree. Hootie stood there, not confused, not afraid, just processing.
Now ask yourself, boy, if they could rewrite the past, what makes you think they haven't rewritten you? And that is where people get lost. Not in the lie, but in how clean the lie was constructed. You said it yourself. The Egyptians, and then the Greeks, were the first to speak openly about gods walking among men, judgment, punishment, heaven, the underworld. But you still looking at it like they were describing events. They were not describing events. They were encoding systems.
What do you mean by encoding systems?
Systems of understanding. The Egyptians spoke in symbols, in frequencies, in alignment with nature, the body, and the cosmos. Their gods were functions, forces, principles. But the Greeks, they did something different. They humanized those forces. They gave them faces, personalities, emotions. They turned cosmic principles into characters.
So Zeus wasn't just a god?
Zeus was a translation, a distortion, a mask placed over something older. The Greeks took what they learned in Kemet and made it digestible for control. Because it is easier to control people with stories than with raw truth. And once those stories were organized, systematized, written down as mythology, that was the blueprint.
The blueprint for modern times religion.
For belief systems, Greek mythology was the first major attempt to structure spirituality into a controlled narrative. Not random stories, but an organized framework. Gods above, man below, judgment, reward, punishment, afterlife. And once that framework existed, it could be replicated, modified, rebranded.
So when people argue religion,
They are arguing versions of the same framework, just with different names. You think it's complicated, but it only feels that way because you were taught from the inside. From the outside, it's obvious. The Greeks did not create spirituality. They organized it. They weaponized it. They turned mystery into doctrine.
and people believed it. But why and how?
Because it answered questions, while hiding the deeper answers. Understand this clearly. The Egyptians hid knowledge in symbols, so you could earn understanding. The Greeks hid knowledge in stories, so you could accept belief. And once belief replaces understanding, control becomes effortless. That is what was done, and that is what you are now beginning to see. And now you're finally seeing it. You see how simple it becomes once you stop looking at it as religion and start looking at it as coded knowledge.
So Genesis and works and days are saying the same thing?
They are mirroring structures, not word for word, but concept for concept. One speaks of 7 days of creation, the other speaks of 5 ages of man. But both are describing cycles, phases, transitions of consciousness and civilization.
And Prometheus, creating man, is that correct?
Is no different than what you call God creating man, just told differently. One says God formed man from the dust. The other says Prometheus moulded man from clay. Same act, different mask. And the fire that Prometheus stole was never just fire. It was also knowledge, awareness, consciousness, the ability to think beyond instinct.
The wind circled again as Hootie sat under the tree.
That is why it was forbidden. That is why it was punished. Because once man gains awareness, he is no longer easily controlled. Is not just a woman. She is a mechanism, a system introduced after knowledge was given. She represents consequence, duality, the introduction of suffering into awareness. Because once you know, you also feel. Before that, in both stories, man lives without suffering, no pain, no struggle, no awareness of death. That is your golden age.
There was a golden age of mankind. Will we ever go back to that state of consciousness? If so, how?
Place your hands upon my branches and allow me to guide your consciousness to a place long forgotten.
Hootie hesitated for a moment, then slowly placed his hands upon the ancient branches. And in that moment, the world around him began to fade.
The greatest of known problems is the human problem, and not until all-embracing examination is made into every phase of human needs can there be an adequate reconstruction policy for a post-war world. That man is physical is obvious, but he is also mental and emotional, he is spiritual, and he has a soul. These latter factors are not so obvious. What to do about them is not so easy, for they are difficult to understand and even more difficult to classify and reduce to a working pattern. We, as builders of a civilization, will have to learn that only when equal consideration is given to each of these elements of man's nature will we arrive at these solutions for the disasters into which men and nations precipitate themselves. Our post-war reconstructors, ours, if not by our selection, at least with our consent, are not outstandingly qualified for this broader task. Few indeed are the statesmen and politicians who have any conception of man as a spiritual being. And as for military leaders, they are primarily disciplinarians, invaluable as such in times of war, but not at all emotionally geared to problems of individualistic peacetime character. And world planners recruited from among our industrial leaders, it must be admitted, are not generally informed on the workings of the human psyche. Those who have made the study of human conduct their life work, the sociologists, have little scientific knowledge of the hidden springs that animate the very conduct into its amazing diversity of manifestations. And if a word is to be said for bringing in the clergy, it might be that the theologian planner who will be truly useful will be one who acquires at least some knowledge of the science of biology. We are displaying a woeful lack of vision in the way we fumble with the eternal laws of life. It is not enough that we now hopefully create a setup permitting men to give allegiance with their minds or to serve faithfully with their bodies. We must someday face the truth that man is inevitably and incurably an idealist, for this is the truth that will set us free. Man's need is for the idealistic content of his nature to be properly nourished. Then his whole consciousness will impel him to right action, and then no more will our laws fail, treaties be broken, and the rights of man stand violated. The American nation desperately needs a vision of its own purpose. It must conceive it in a generous idealism, great and strong enough to bind thoughtless and selfish persons to something bigger than themselves. It must recognize that it is in the intangible ideal that the foundations are laid for all seeable good, must know that the truly practical course, and the course of hard realism for America, is the one that is laid basically in a generous idealism. This is more than an indicated course. It is one that we inevitably must follow, guided by the hand of destiny. Believing this to be so, I dedicate this book to the proposition that American democracy is part of a universal plan. Our world is ruled by inflexible laws, which control not only the motions of the heavenly bodies, but the consequences of human conduct. These universal motions, interpreted politically, are impelling human society out of a state of autocracy and tyranny to democracy and freedom. This motion is inevitable, for the growth of humans is a gradual development of mind over matter, and the motion itself represents the natural and reasonable unfoldment of the potentials within human character. Those who attempt to resist this motion destroy themselves. To cooperate with this motion and to assist nature in every possible way to the accomplishment of its inevitable purpose is to survive. Thousands of years before the beginning of the Christian era, many enlightened thinkers discovered the will of God as expressed through nature in the affairs of men. They made known their discoveries in terms of religions, philosophies, sciences, arts, and political systems. These first statements are now the admired monuments of ancient learning. Available to men of today, they are generally ignored. Years of research among the records of olden peoples, available in libraries, museums, and shrines of ancient cultures, has convinced me that there exists in the world today, and has existed for thousands of years, a body of enlightened humans united in what might be termed an order of the quest. It is composed of those whose intellectual and spiritual perceptions have revealed to them that civilization has a secret destiny. Secret, I say, because this high purpose is not realized by the many. The great masses of people still live long without any knowledge whatsoever that they are part of a universal motion in time and space. Pythagoras, Plato, Aristotle, Buddha, Jesus, and Muhammad are among the greatest names recorded in history, but it is not customary to regard the men who bore these names as statesmen or sociologists. They are thought of as philosophers, sages, seers, and mystics, whose doctrines have no application to the political needs of an industrial civilization. Yet it is men like Plato and Buddha who still exercise the most powerful force in mortal affairs toward the perpetuation and preservation of a civilized state among all nations. All of the great leaders of ancient times realized and taught that the establishment of a state of permanent peace among the nations depended upon the release of human ideals, but through properly trained and disciplined minds capable of interpreting these ideals in terms of the common good. World democracy was the secret dream of the great classical philosophers. Toward the accomplishment of this greatest of all human ends, they outlined programs of education, religion, and social conduct directed to the ultimate achievement of a practical and universal brotherhood. And in order to accomplish their purposes more effectively, these ancient scholars bound themselves with certain mystic ties into a broad confraternity. In Egypt, Greece, India, and China, the state mysteries came into existence. Orders of initiated priest philosophers were formed as a sovereign body to instruct, advise, and direct the rulers of the states. Thousands of years ago, in Egypt, these mystical orders were aware of the existence of the Western Hemisphere and the great continent which we call America. The bold resolution was made that this Western continent should become the site of the philosophic empire. Just when this was done, it was impossible now to say, but certainly the decision was reached prior to the time of Plato, for a thinly veiled statement of this resolution is the substance of his treatise on the Atlantic Islands. One of the most ancient of man's constructive ideals is the dream of a universal democracy and a cooperation of all nations in a commonwealth of states. The mechanism for the accomplishment of this ideal was set in motion in the ancient temples of Greece, Egypt, and India. So brilliant was the plan and so well was it administrated that it has survived to our time, and it will continue to function until the great work is accomplished. Philosophy set up its house in the world to free men by freeing men of their own inordinate desires and ambitions. It saw selfishness as the greatest crime against the common good, for selfishness is natural to all who are untutored. It recognized that the mind has to be trained in the laws of thinking before men can be capable of self-rulership, and it knew that the democratic commonwealth can be a reality only when our world is a world of self-ruling men. And so it is from the remote past, from the deep shadows of the medieval world, as well as from the early struggles of more modern times, that the power of American democracy has come. But we are only on the threshold of the democratic state. Not only must we preserve that which we have gained through ages of striving, we must also perfect the plan of the ages, setting up here the machinery for a world brotherhood of nations and races. This is our duty and our glorious opportunity. It seems to me that the basic plan for the post-war world should be one solidly founded in this great dream of universal brotherhood. It is not enough to work on the problem solely in terms of politics and industry. The formula must express a broad idealism, one which appeals to the finest intuitions of man, and one universally understandable by all who have lived, dreamed, and suffered on this mortal sphere.